Hey, what's up everybody? My name is Taylor Coibion, owner of the OC Wellness here in Conroe, Texas. So firstly, today I want to go over pain management and its lions, tigers, and bears, right? So there's many different ways to address pain management, from chiropractic care to breathing, nutrition, to movement, to stress relief, to opioids. But today we're only just going to talk about movement. So I want to go ahead and take a moment before we go on to this next slide and talk about the difference between local movement and global movement. So say for instance somebody tore their ACL, and when somebody tears their ACL, they go through this series of physical therapy, of recovery, and they don't typically start as soon as they get back. They don't start doing some squat jumps and they don't go right back on the athletic field. They start with linear movement here, forward and back, just retraining the knee joint and its basic motions, and then they might then increase to recruiting the hip, up, out, and then they might come to some lateral motions here, and then they might finally decide, okay, now I might get a ball and I might put it behind my back. I might take away some of my body weight so I could start coming into a squat and then coming back up, and then they might decide, okay, now I'm ready to go ahead and turn. I might be ready to do a global movement, which is going out of that forward, that linear, that straight line motion, and coming up and saying, all right, I can take this knee and I can now step out over to the side, and I can step up, and then I can step back down, and then I can come back. All right, so that would be considered a global movement when I'm using my entire body and I'm crossing into different planes. I'm not utilizing the knee as a joint to stabilize in one singular motion. I'm recruiting everything around the knee to stabilize in all aspects around the knee. That is very, very important for day-to-day life. Can you walk in a straight line without having to turn at any point? No. You can't. My wife thought I was crazy whenever I tried to prove that point at the house. I kept trying to walk in a straight line, and then I came up and I hit a wall, and she said, why do you keep running into that wall? I said, because I'm trying to figure out how to get around the wall without turning. I can't do it. And yeah, I'm the crazy husband, but that's okay. And my wife loves me. So, and that same concept for the knee, for the ACL, can be applied to the shoulder. If you tear your rotator cuff, do you go right back, if you're a baseball player, do you go right back out to throwing right back into the game, or do you take a little bit of time? Do you start with some localized movements, maybe here with some internal, external rotation? Do we try to extend the arm up and extend the arm down? Do we try to recruit the shoulder blade and get the shoulder blade back into motion? Do we start localized? Yeah, because that's safer. If I were to go out and I were to just jump right back into the game and start throwing 90 mile an hour, which I can't do, by the way, fastballs, then I might end up hurting myself a lot quicker and just continue to do it over and over again. So we'd start localized, we'd start working to global, and now let's go ahead and take global to another level. So from this motion here, when I talked about the knee, and I took my leg up and I stepped here and then I stepped up, you can take that further by then throwing a ball to somebody in front of you, because life is precarious, right? We don't always know, am I actually going to be okay as I step up the stairs, or is a cat going to run under my feet, and is my knee going to have to go, oh gosh, I have to get away from that cat? Yes, that happens to me, and that's why I used it. I do that all the time, and I hurt my knee one time trying to get away from that cat, and I thought, dang it, I'm not supposed to let this happen to myself. But it happens sometimes because life is precarious and sometimes circumstances happen. So we want to train our bodies the best way that we can to be prepared for those uncertain circumstances. So when we talk about the pitcher throwing the ball, a pitcher doesn't just stand here with their legs underneath, their feet underneath their hips and say, hey guys, I'm ready, let's go. They don't. No, you see these guys, they have one foot in front of the other, they bring that ball back, sometimes they lift that front leg and they turn and they rotate those hips, and then everything is engaged. This is a real global movement from my toes all the way up to the top of my head, the atlas of my head. So if I'm here, that's global. These are things that we want to try to work into. So when you're trying to manage your pain, you want to be going from those local to those global scenarios, to retraining and re-educating your body and your muscle to be able to carry and react to all of these situations that occur throughout life. Now, some common movement thoughts. So a big one for me, something that I really try to drive home with people is, we have a lot of people say there's this big movement, we should start running on softer surfaces or get softer shoes. I know Skechers has those Tempur-Pedic ones that just feel so cushiony and they feel so good. But we can't go too many places in life avoiding that impact. And that was the big cause of that push. Hey, we need to be less impactful on our joints. Well, I can see how that happened, and I do agree with that. Our joints do deserve less impact. However, we do have systems in place within our body naturally to help our body absorb impact, and that's through our tissue, our ligaments, our muscle tissue. So if we can train our body, and the biggest way that I like to do that, by the way, is through something called eccentric isometrics. So an eccentric motion is when Dr. Eula was so gracefully talking about the pulley system. When your muscle is getting pulled apart, for instance, in that squat, when you're going down, your muscle is getting pulled apart. It's lengthened here. This is the most unstable portion of a squat, right here at the bottom and on the way down. So taking it slow, eccentric, when everything's lengthening and stretching and pulling apart, and then holding isometric, isolated, we're holding here, and then we're coming up. Now we're training our body. Think of a football player in a lineman, and I'm going to reuse that again when I get down here. Do you want, as a lineman going up against somebody else, do you want your body to be able to push off quickly or give less quickly? What's more important? If your body does it, well, no, actually, to not allow yourself to be pushed. As a lineman, it's more important for you to hold the person there. At the end of the day, if you could just hold them, I'm begging you, hold them, keep them away from me. I don't care if you get them to the ground at all. Just keep them away from me. Don't let your body give. The same thing whenever you're stepping and trying to avoid that cat on the stairs. You want your body to be able to react, to have all of the tissue around that joint and everything around that joint to be able to say, hey, hold on, I can catch myself here. I can absorb that impact. Same thing when you're running. You want everything around your ankle, everything around your knee, everything around your back to be trained to carry the load, to give less. All that tissue needs to be trained repeatedly, repetitively, habitually, not to give, because it's what's going to help save your joints. Now, I already went into the lineman part of this, so I want to go ahead and reuse it in a different manner. So when you see people and you see them on machines, and a lot of people, they think that, especially baby boomers, they think that I need to go to the gym and I need to get on machines, and that's about the extent of my movement. So when you're on the line, do you have your back up against the wall? No. How many times in life do you catch yourself with your back up against the wall pushing something away from you or trying to push something anywhere? It's very rare. My wife was one of those people that thought that she could put her back up against the wall because we had a really heavy box, and she said, no, I can get it up the stairs. So she put her back up against the wall and she started pushing with her feet, and then, she got it, to where her legs could fully extend, and then her back had to come off the wall, and then all of a sudden her core couldn't support the leverage that she was trying to create, and then she just kind of fell back and the box rolled into her. And I did record it, and if anybody wants a copy of that video, I can send it to you, and I will get hit, but it's worth it. So now let's go into yoga, as we see over here in that far top left picture. So I love yoga, I do teach yoga, and I do believe that there's great benefit within it. However, one of the common downfalls of most yoga practice is that it does focus in that straight line fashion. Whether it's a straight line here or it's a straight line here, very rarely, unless you're doing specific types of yoga, are you crossing planes and ending up here. So we want to be able to make sure that at some point in our training regimen for our bodies or our movement, that we are crossing planes. We are teaching our body. The hip is a great example of that, as we don't just want to train the hip here like a toy soldier, or one of those little tippy bird ducks or something. That's typically what comes to my mind at first. We want to be able to train our hip to come here, because typically, fun fact, whenever people say that they fell and they broke their hip, the hip typically broke before they fell. It's that femoral neck, that little thing that goes right here. That's the thing that typically breaks, and then you fall because of that. So there's a ton of musculature around that hip that you want to be able to work and train all of it to protect that hip. That hip deserves protection just like the rest of your joints. Now, weightlifting and CrossFit, something that a lot of people like to do, and I'm not knocking any of these things, anybody, I'm really not. I just want to make sure that if you are doing these things, that you're making sure that you are doing other forms of movement as well, as your body does deserve that. So typically, most of these things, a deadlift, a clean and jerk, a clean and press, whenever we come up, we're still working in that straight line. We're still working here, here, we're still there. We're not working the external rotators of our hip. We're not working the external rotators of our shoulder. We're not coming way out here and targeting all 4 aspects of our rotator cuff. Those things are important to be able to train and to make sure that they're staying healthy. So these are all movements that we want to consider when we're thinking about, okay, I've gone through these localized rehabilitation drills for my joints, for my body. Now I'm working globally. How much further can I take this global concept? How much further can I challenge my body to react and adapt to these precarious situations? Because again, life is very uncertain, and a lot of times, yes, we do go through habits. A lot of pain is set on by habitual activity, but oftentimes we do have those acute occurrences when pain is onset by just some random occurrence of events. Now, I hope I was able to revolutionize some of your thinking here today when it comes to movement, getting you out of those straight lines, getting you into multiplanar movement, re-educating the body, its nervous system, its muscular system, working the body in a very neuromuscular way to where the brain is cognitively sending those signals down to the body to be able to react for whatever you want to throw at it. You don't want to reach that point in your life that you're thinking, I just can't do the things that I used to anymore. And that's something that I hear quite a bit, and it's not fun. It's not fun for them, and it's not fun to hear. So there is a way out of that, I promise. There's a way to prevent it, there's a way to manage it, and it's only as hard as you want it to be. So thank you, everybody. I'm Taylor Coibion, owner of the OC Wellness in Conroe, Texas. I'm going to go ahead and pass this back over to Dr. Hewlett. Thank you all so much.
Perfect. Thank you, Taylor. Make sure you guys capture his info on the slide here. It's theocwellness.com. Taylor is a wealth of information in regards to muscle movement patterns, nutrition, and so much more. So thank you.